Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the PivotBoss pre-market video for Tuesday, October 3rd, 2023. I am Frank Ochoa, aka PivotBoss. Happy Tuesday, everyone. Here's a look at the daily time frame of the ES. One thing you'll notice about the current quarter here is that we finished the previous quarter right near the lows of the quarter. Previous quarter's midpoint about right here, previous quarter's high about right there, and at the moment we're seeing a little bit of weakness here. The early idea for the quarter would be for price to flush through the previous quarter's low and take the previous quarter's close offered, find a strong low, and then look for a return back to the previous quarter's midpoint, and maybe by the end of the quarter even go outside quarter up, finishing somewhere between 46 and 46.50 by the end of the quarter. That would be the best case scenario from a bullish perspective here. So right now, watching for weakness at the moment as it continues to play out. We could see further weakness into the previous session's low, into the previous week's low, and from there, once we drop down through the previous week's low here, that could provide an opportunity for bulls to trap and reverse back up the range. Now, overall, this market continues to hold kind of in this narrow range here between 43.70 and the recent lows 42.80. Eventually, for strength to be seen, you've got to push through this prior pivot high and the key range low here. If it can push through this level here, that opens up some upside, at least on a short-term basis. The next couple of 100 points could be to the upside. So if price comes down here and puts in a strong low, say the strong low is 42.50, add a couple of 100 points, and you could be looking at a 45.50 move. At the very least, a 44.50 move would be a very high probability bounce. So 200 points back to this point here, and maybe some overage to the upside in on a near-term basis. All right, let's take a look here at the NQ. Looking at the NQ, very similar price action, only this one has held support. So not quite at support just yet. This is 14,600, the level we were watching last week. We bounced off that zone, and right now kind of holding inside day at the moment. The previous session finished inside day as a finished session, so you have kind of a double inside day here at the moment. Overall, this market right now has been trending lower from a near-term basis, has kind of rounded off on the upper end. 14.6 very important here. The previous quarter's low very important. The quarterly range from the last quarter was fairly narrow. So again, if we are going to see an outside quarter up, this would be the quarter for that to happen. If you come down here and find a way to trap below the previous quarter's low, that could open up a return to the quarterly mid, and then across the range for an outside quarter up, even if it's briefly an outside quarter. So again, looking for price to come down here and find some sort of reaction. Do we get all the way down here? Does it find a higher low? We'll see how it develops here. But if you can find a reaction on this next move or push lower, that could open up some upside from a near-term perspective. All right, looking at crude oil. Crude oil with big-time selling pressure here over the last few days. One of the things we mentioned before was on this session here, if price can come up here and find a reaction early on, that could bring us all the way back to 88s. Basically, this strong low, we were looking for price to push us into about 94s. Once it got into that zone and found rejection, we were looking for a snap back to 88s. Today, we got that level. 87.76 is the current low, swinging back to take out these lows. Now, we're looking for a strong and equal opposite low on this end. If we can take out this 88 and find a strong low, we snap back to the midpoint of this recent drop, which will be around 91s, and that'll give us perhaps a new key range that we would then see some development within. Overall, if we can get a strong enough reaction on this side of the chart here, it could snap us back not only to 91s, but also make it back to new highs. Those new highs could be brought back down, and we could be in now a newly formed rectangular range. So overall, expanding range right now. Just took out the 88s. You'd like to see a bit more flush here. or a stronger low to develop in order to get this thing going back up. Right now, a narrow range here as we head into the RTH Open, just 46% of average range. Again, we want to see a stronger low here that could shoot us back up within this range, back toward 91s up ahead. If we take a look here at gold futures, gold right now down about 0.2%. This one has seen tremendous weakness here lately. One of the things we mentioned before was how tightly coiled this range was, and how that compression here was going to unleash a big time move up ahead. And the initial thing we saw was 1950 going offered, which is the epicenter of that that range here, that compression that we've seen. All of this turned into a triangular range with the apex coming to about 1950. That went offered, and since then 120 point drop off into 1830. Now 1830, as we mentioned before, is the previous year's close price. So if you look at the previous year's close right here, this is the previous year's close 2 years running. We've now come back to that level. This is something we mentioned up above, that if we break down, we likely come back to 1830 to wipe out the year's gains, and we may actually see a little overage to the downside into 1800, which would take out the lows for the year, and into 1810 here, which is value for the year so far. So we still may have a little bit more downside up ahead. Again, this was a tremendous compression that developed over the course of 4 to 5 months. So to get a 1 or 2 week drop may not be all we see. We may actually end up seeing quite a bit more movement overall. If we can find a strong low here off the 1800 level, perhaps we rally back up toward 1900, 1925 and fill in this portion of the profile. So if you look right here, this portion right here is pretty empty lately. If we drop down enough, we may be able to snap back and trade in here. Otherwise, failure to hold 1800 really starts to open up some downside ahead. So we've got the initial flush. We'll see how it plays out here on this next move. Any pullback here could be a selling opportunity still, unless today develops into a strong low. Initial thrust reversal signal developing right now, which could lead to a little bit of a fade back up. If it can turn into a strong low, then maybe a bigger bounce could occur. Looking at the YM, lastly here, the YM, big time weakness overall. This one may be going negative on the year now. If you look at the previous year's close here, right here, we're getting close to that level right there. That's the previous year's close, and we're coming into it very soon. Previous quarter's low is right here, and the break-even point for the year is right here. Obviously, we've seen a big-time trap off the 35 177s and have dropped all the way down. This key range was the initial key range that had us looking for a trap in reverse to begin with. Now we've pushed through the key range low. This is the 50% extension. The 100 is right here. That's 33K. So we could be looking at more weakness here into 33K from a very near-term perspective. Like the other markets, like the ES, like the NQ, if we can get ourselves a strong rejection of prices below the previous quarter's low, that could provide a reversal back toward the previous quarter's midpoint. That's going to take us back toward 34.7. So if prices can drop down and find a strong low, say it drops into 33K, 33K back up to 34.7 could be a move that happens up ahead. That's a 1700 point move if it can play out. Again, looking for a strong low or some trap to develop with the potential for a snapback up ahead. So that's going to be the path forward. Again, if we fail to hold 32.8, that's going to be huge. 32.8 is the next major market structure level below. If we drop into 32.8, can it hold that level and then bounce? That could provide another potential bounce point as well. All right, that is it for now. We'll see how this develops here heading into the rest of the session. Good luck, trade well, and I'll see you in the trading room. Take care.